Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. It's getting warm and it's time to plant the summer flowers. Today we're going to plant a flower and herb container garden. Also, we're just past the date for the last frost, so it is time to plant tomatoes. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Joellen Diamond. Joellen is a TSU Extension agent in Tipton County, and Walter Battle will join us later to plant tomatoes. All right, Joellen, container planting.
Yes.
So you're going to get us started.
Yes,
and I'm sure
ma'am.
you know all about planting these containers, don't you?
Yes, I've planted many over the years.
I know you have. So how do we get started?
Well, I am going to add some soil moist crystals to our container. This will help in keeping the plants with water throughout the summer when it's hot. And I've used them for many years. They
Okay.
do a great job. What's very interesting, kids actually love these because look how small they are.
Wow, they are.
They're very small. And then when you add water, they get to be like this.
That's pretty good size.
So, and this is the whole idea. When you water your container, the water absorbs in these crystals and they expand like this and adds extra water in the flower bed for your plants to use between waterings.
Okay.
So it really does help keep your plants healthy in between waterings and make you not have to water the bed so much.
Okay. Smart. I
So
like that.
we're going to incorporate these within the first 6 inches of this container because we don't need to go all the way down because the roots don't go but around 6 or so inches.
Okay.
And that's where the majority of the roots are going to be, so that's where we want to put these crystals.
Okay.
So we'll sprinkle them in first.
And they just go right there on top. Okay.
Well, we're
You
going to start off with
incorporate
them on top, and then we will incorporate them in.
Okay.
And by the way, this was about a tablespoon of crystals in 4 cups of water. So they go a long way.
Wow. Have you always used these?
I've always used
Okay.
them. And these will stay in the ground. You will have to replace them, but they should last about 5 years.
Okay.
So anyway, but then we're going to take them, and we don't want them on top. We want to incorporate them in the bed.
And while you do that, Joellen, so what happens if you don't hydrate them first? What if you just
Well, if you don't
put
hydrate them
here
first,
and then try to water?
and you water them, I've had people think, oh, a little goes a long way. And actually, the crystals, once they got wet, came up and poured out of the top of the plant, of the pot. And it just stood on the surface, and that wasn't going to do any good to the bed.
Okay.
Now, since we're adding herbs, we're going to add some herbs that are perennial and one that's a biannual, which will have to be replaced. And they will stay evergreen all winter and summer long.
Okay.
And in fact, to have a little bit of structure to the garden, we're going to plant a rosemary in the center for some height.
Okay. And while you do that, Joellen, so let's let the folks know, what do we mean by perennial and biennial?
Perennials will come back every year.
Okay.
Biannuals live for 2 years and then they die.
Okay.
And you have to replace them.
Okay.
And that's what our parsley is we'll be planting. Parsley is a biannual.
All right. Getting the gloves ready. Gotta
Get
have
my
the
gloves.
All right.
I always wear gloves. And I'm going to pull this gently out of the pot, and you'll see it's a little bit root bound, but not bad. If you want to leave this in, you can, or you can take it out. It doesn't matter. We only have 1 plant in here. We're going to rough up these roots a little bit, spread them out. And we're going to plant it just at the soil surface. We don't want to bury it.
Okay. So let the roots get out.
Let the roots get out, but just plant it at the soil surface. And next we will plant the parsley. We have 2 of them here. These are little root bound too. We'll work on them a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Just separate the roots just a little bit. Want them to go out and not around like the bottom of the container.
So Joellen, for our viewers, if they're in the store and they're looking for, you know, some plant material, they're looking for the white roots, right?
White roots.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're going to plant these together like they're one big plant.
Huh. Okay.
And next we're going to plant the other herb, which is a chive.
Okay.
And you can keep cutting on these and it will keep growing out. Sometimes, but these are supposed to be perennial, so that you shouldn't have to replace them, but if you do need to, you can.
Okay. And again, nice white fibrous roots.
Nice. This one, these aren't root bound or anything. They can
Yeah,
just
those are
plant those
nice.
just like that.
Yeah.
So they're very, very nice. And again, we'll plant them together, and these will keep growing outward. So these will get bigger as they stay in here, just like the rosemary will. And since you're going to be trimming on your rosemary, you can actually shape it into a nice tree conical shape if you want.
Okay.
Because you're going to be trimming on it to use your herbs in your cooking.
Yeah, it smells good too. Man.
Now, a lot of times I always use marigolds. One thing, they're very cheery, they're very pretty.
Cheery.
I think they're a really good plant to have in your garden. And it works just the same way with herbs. Now, there's not a whole lot that disturbs these herbs. Now, the parsley, there's some caterpillars that like the parsley, but they become butterflies, so I kind of let them have that. And because the parsley will come back from it. It does not kill your parsley, it just defoliates it and then it'll come back.
Okay.
But when you have a 6-pack like this, a lot of times the roots will all be together, so you want to squeeze the container on all sides and gently lift the plant out, trying to keep all the root ball intact.
Yeah.
Just like this.
All right.
There we go. There's one. And these are nicely rooted. There's not too many roots. It's not too root bound. It's just got enough roots. Very good. But the marigolds there's a lot of bugs that don't like the smell of marigolds. So I kind of like to use them with the herbs just to make sure all the bad bugs don't like to get on the plants.
Okay. So it's the smell.
It's the smell of them. They have a little smell to them that the rest of some bugs just don't like. And then we will plant these again just at the soil surface. We don't want to bury them.
Yeah, those are right at the surface. Okay.
Yeah,
Good,
we don't
good.
want to bury them.
That's a good lesson. I see a lot of people making that
Yeah,
mistake.
well, a lot of people bury things too deep.
it's too
You
deep.
I'd rather have it a little bit high than too deep. And see, we've got plenty of soil in here. And next, besides these, to make a little bit of color, so we've got green, and we've got yellow. Let's add some red. And because all of these plants like it on the dry side, we are going to put our red as vinca, because vinca also likes it on the dry side. Again,
Yeah.
nicely rooted, not too much, very, very nice. We'll plant that to there. And these will all grow up and grow together, and then you'll be able to harvest all of your rosemary, your chives, and your parsley all through the growing season. And the good thing about this is it stays all winter long.
Okay.
So in the fall, when you start changing out your seasonal color, you can also change out these seasonal color, but leave your herbs in, so you can continue to use them.
Okay. Good idea.
And I like to set things out first to see how evenly spaced it is in the bed. And then we plant again. Watch the crown of plants. You want to plant them at the soil surface and not below it. Once you've loosened up the soil and put those soil crystals in, the bed, you can almost don't even need a trowel. You can just plant these with your hands.
Yeah.
It's all nice and loose.
Good.
Now you can put this container, you actually could use this on your front porch if you wanted to. You have two of them that match. Any kind of, you don't have to have a barrel. It can be any kind of container that you wish. But it will do well as long as you have about 4 to 6 hours of sun a day, because these vegetables need all of this stuff likes lots of sun. Now if you have a shady place, there's very few herbs that like a lot of shade, but there might be a few out there, but everything usually herbs wise likes to have sun. So we were expecting this to having at least 4 to 6 hours of sun a day.
And it will get that. And Joellen, we appreciate that demonstration. We can't wait to see what this is going to look like throughout the growing season. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, we're out here in the family plot garden. We have Walter Battle with us, and Walter's going to show us how to plant tomatoes, because you know what?
Yes.
It is tomato planting time.
Yes, it is. I've been waiting all winter for this.
I know you have.
Yes, and I'm excited now.
All right.
And all you want to do is get here, and with tomatoes, what we like to do is plant where at least 2/3 of the plant is covered. So let me get a little bit deeper.
All right. So pretty much about the size of that little pea pot that it's in?
That's right. And I love those biodegradable pots.
Okay.
And then you just simply put it right there. And we always have to protect against cutworms. So one way you can do that is put 2 nails by the plant if you want to do this. And that will protect it against the cutworms.
Now what does the cutworm do though?
Oh, it'll just come by and just, just cut that plant off, and you'll come out and you'll see all your tomato plants just laying to the side.
Okay.
So that's just a little trick you can do.
Hence is why they call it the cutworm.
That's
right?
why they call it the
All right,
cutworm.
I got you.
And they will attack pepper, corn, and other items as well.
Okay.
Let's see, let's plant another one here. And with tomatoes, we try to plant and lose at least 2 feet apart. I like to go 3 in some instances. And again, we want to dig down. Now, another thing we hear people talk about blossom end rot.
Yeah.
That's where you have a pretty tomato on top, but it's rotten on the bottom. That's a calcium deficiency. And one way you can guard against that is put an antacid tablet
Because
up in the hole.
antacid tablets are pretty much calcium based.
That's right. That's right. And then that way you'll have that down there to guard against that. And listen, let me get a little bit deeper.
Remember the old timers, would do this a lot.
Yes. And once again, we're in there. And there we go.
Okay.
That plant's ready. And then we'll just plant some more tomatoes here.
Pretty much a South's favorite, don't you think?
Oh,
Planting
yes,
tomatoes.
yes.
I think
And
everybody
again,
should do that.
At least 2/3 of the plant is covered, and there you go. Now, one of the things that I like to do is sucker my tomato plants, and that's just simply just removing some of these smaller branches. Listen, we'll take this one off too. And that will enable the plant to bear longer, bear bigger fruit, remove some of the, help it to use more nutrients. And some people even take these and they'll dig them and set those out. And they'll root.
And their root. How
Yes,
about that?
and come back. And those are, that's just a little technique some old gardeners use to get more tomatoes. So that's a pretty good thing to do.
All right. Well, look, let's tell our viewers the difference between determinate and indeterminate tomatoes. What's the difference?
Well, basically, determinate means that tomato variety has been, I guess, cultivated or bred to grow a certain size or, a certain length or whatever. where indeterminate means that it can get pretty tall. I've seen tomato plants get 6-7 feet tall before.
Yeah, so have I.
So those would be your indeterminate type varieties. Some of your older varieties tend to be in that group.
Okay. Okay. And those indeterminates will pretty much go to frost.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
definitely. You'll have tomatoes all the way up to frost. I know that last year I had them up all the way up to like November 20th. And you know.
Wow, pretty close to Thanksgiving.
Pretty much. As a matter of fact, I pulled all of my green tomatoes around that time because I feared a big frost. And I had fried green tomatoes at Thanksgiving.
About that.
Yeah,
So
it was a great
work.
appetizer.
So pretty good with the meal.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
And let me ask you this. So do you use a tomato cage
Yes,
for your tomatoes or some other?
yes. I like to
apparatus or
use the
something?
cages, and you just simply just put the cage right here, and then that tomato would just grow up in that cage, and the fruit would be supported, and you won't have where it's rotting and things like that.
Okay. Now tell me this. Did you have any major problems with your tomatoes?
I didn't last year, like I said, because I know how to fix the cutworm.
Okay.
I'm gonna use my nails.
All right.
I know how to control against blossom end rot with my antacid tablets.
Okay.
Just
Calcium.
about 2 or 3 per plant would do. Just crush them up.
Okay.
And I didn't really have any problems last year.
Okay, so no blights.
No blights, not at my garden.
Not at your
It
garden?
didn't happen.
Okay.
Yes, I did get some reports of some of the late blight and all that from other gardeners. And a lot of times, if you use a resistant varieties, that's probably the best way
It is.
to combat that.
Okay. Here's something else. How about mulching your tomatoes? Do you think that's a good idea?
Yes, I usually do. I mulch my entire garden with straw. I just love using wheat straw. It's readily available, where I live, and it just does a wonderful job.
Okay. And it pretty much keeps, that splashing effect down. Because that's
right.
where a lot of your fungal spores are pretty much in that ground.
Exactly.
In that bare ground. So
Right.
if you cover it up with some type of mulch or something like that,
That's right.
then
That
it
helps
actually
control
guards,
that.
Yeah, against that. All right then, Walter, we can't wait to see what these tomatoes are going to look like later on in the season.
Oh yes, I know they're going to be delicious.
I know they are.
Yes.
Maybe you can cook some up for us.
Okay.
All right.
I will.
All right.
Oftentimes on the show, you hear us talk about the importance of soil testing. And soil testing serves a lot of purposes. One, it keeps us from over-fertilizing, and it also helps us get the plant the nutrients that it needs. So, and the way to do this is real simple. You just want to go about 6 inches, 6 to 8 inches down, and you always collect a little bit, and then hit another spot right here, another 6 inches, and maybe one more spot here in this bed. And then you mix all that soil up with your hands. To be a gardener now, you're gonna get your hands dirty. And then of course, you take that and you put this into the soil test box. And of course, fold this, and now this is ready to go to the soils lab to be tested and help you grow even better plants.
All right, here's our Q&A session. Joella, you help us out, all right? Here's our first viewer email. I am thinking of downsizing my vegetable gardening this year. If I decide to make a raised bed garden, what should I use for soil? And where do I need to get the soil? And this is from Miss Judy in Atoka. So Miss Judy, first thing first, raised beds are pretty good.
That's a great idea.
It's a good
That's a good idea.
So we applaud that. Now let's get to our first question. What should I use for soil? What do you think about that, Joella?
Well, there's a lot of places that sell a garden mix. A lot of places that will sell, topsoil, sand, and rocks. They also sell a garden mix, and that is a good start. Then, of course, you're going to continue to add amendments to the soil from your own composting, and maybe some manures if you can find them. But yeah, you can start with the garden mix. That will come a long way.
Okay. Walter, anything to add to that?
The only thing I would add is, add a little calcium, a little lime to that bed,
Okay.
to take care of your calcium needs. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. And I think Joellen already answered the second question, where should she get the soil? I mean, again, there are places,
Yes.
In town that you can get mulch, that you can get soil mixes. They're readily available. They will deliver some of them to your
Yes.
home if you have a truck. You know, you
Yes.
take the truck there and then put it in the back of the bed for you. But again, good idea, Miss Judy, to have a raised bed garden. As you can see, we have raised beds out here in the family plot
Yes.
garden.
And I would say probably make it about what, when you think about a foot deep, I guess, as far as depth of the soil, get a good rooting base.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we have pretty good dimensions. I mean, you definitely want to be able to reach over in there and,
Yes,
put your plants in the ground and
Yeah,
things
you're
like
more,
that.
about 4 feet wide because that's what the typical adult needs to reach across.
4 feet, okay.
About 4 feet.
Okay. All right. There you go, Miss Judy. Appreciate that. Here's our next viewer email. I planted some cabbage and cauliflower a few weeks ago from starts. My cabbage looked happy, but most of the cauliflower plants have yellow on the leaves and look kind of sickly. What is going on? And this is from Seth. So we'll start with you, Walter. What do you think may be the problem? And there may be a couple of things going on here, maybe?
Yes, it could be some type of fertilization issue. I'm thinking possibly a magnesium deficiency where, Epsom salt would correct that. That's kind of what I'm thinking,
Okay.
just in hearing the description.
Okay. What do you think, Joellen?
Well, I noticed that first thing I want to say is I think he's great. He put newspaper down for mulch.
Right.
That
Oh,
is
yes.
a
Yeah, that was good.
fantastic start. But I see that the ground is pretty level there. And our soils here in the Mid-South, they're got very small particles. And I know it's all about pore space and air
Yeah.
space for roots. and the cauliflower might like a little more well-drained area. So I would tend to, since it seems to be fairly flat, I would tend to put a little mound up for each one of those plants and mount it up just a few inches to get it well drained. And then with your newspaper mulch, I would also add maybe some straw or some hay bales and spread that out to add to the
a good
newspaper layer just to keep the soil covered so weed seeds won't germinate.
I like that
And I
idea.
know if homeowners have trouble getting a large bale in your car, what you can do is you bring some, like 4 bags with you, garbage bags, and some scissors and some wire cutters, because you never know how the straw or the hay has been baled. So you'd have either for the wire or the string. And then you can cut those, break the bales up into 3 or 4 sections, put them in the garbage bags, and then put them in your trunk or your car, so it's easier to handle, easier to store, and doesn't get your car dirty.
Well, I wish I would have known that because that's why my trunk is dirty now.
Oh, it is.
For putting a straw bale back there. That's a good idea. Yeah, good suggestion. I like that. But yeah, definitely like the newspaper. That's the first thing I noticed.
Great,
they put down.
great newspaper.
That's a real good
yes,
idea.
yes,
Good
that's
start.
always good.
And something else I like to add too. Anytime I see yellow on the leaves, of course, I'm thinking fertility. You know,
Yes,
just like you
that's what I
mentioned.
was thinking,
Definitely thought fertility. And I thought nitrogen fertility because usually nitrogen shows up as yellow leaves
yellowing,
on some of those
yes.
older leaves at the bottom
Yes.
of the plant. So, but anyway, it goes as a fertility issue. Okay. So we definitely appreciate that question, Seth. Hope that helps you out. Here's our next viewer email. When people say heirloom, like heirloom tomatoes, what do they mean? What do you think they mean, Joellen?
That means that plant has been around for a long time, and they have kept the seeds of that because they love the flavor of that particular tomato, and it's been around for a very long time and handed down and handed down and handed down. So that's
heirloom.
that's heirloom.
That's heirloom.
Yes.
Okay, Walter, anything to add to that?
Well, you do read some that they tend to be open pollinated
Okay.
plants. And also, going on the other end of it, it means that it's not a hybrid. And a lot of times our hybrid varieties are those that have been bred to, protect against a disease or storage life or whatever. So yes, the heirlooms is the good old-fashioned flavor that we grew up with. And that's the good stuff.
Yeah, the one I usually hear about the most in this area, of course, is going to be the Cherokee Purple.
Yes,
and I always
yes,
hear about
Cherokee
the brandy
Purple.
wine.
Yes.
Old standby heirloom
Old
tomato.
standby. What
And
granddaddy planted.
Yes. Walter, Charlie, thanks for being here today. Out of time.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. To get more information on things we talked about on today's show, go to familyplotgarden.com. There are links to extension publications with every video. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.